Welcome back, everybody. Today is day 2 of our Novena to Our Lady of Sorrows, and the second sorrow is the flight into Egypt.
So good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Today, we again look at St. Alphonsus' reflections on this sorrow. Here's the context. So Jesus has been born, and the wise men from the east come into Bethlehem, and they're looking for the child, the Messiah. Herod gets word of this, and he tells the wise men, when you find a child, come back and tell me, so that he wants to go and see. But in reality, Herod's a little insecure. He's afraid of the competition because there can only be one king. And so in his mind, when the wise men don't return, he has been deceived by the wise man. He sends out word to kill every child, male child, 2 years and under, because he figures, well, I'll get that potential king. And in the middle of the night, what happens?
An angel comes to St. Joseph and says, "Arise, take the young child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him."
So can you imagine what's going on in the Holy Family's life? Just in the middle of the night, St. Alphonsus says that night they left. There was no time to call back home and say, hey, this is where we're going, Elizabeth. He didn't have time to go back to his hometown there, collect his tools. It was just jump back up on that donkey and head out to Egypt in the middle of the night. I imagine the soldiers maybe going through that night, killing all these 2-year-old children. They slip out quietly under the terror of that night. If I was Joseph and Mary too, I'd have some questions about all this. I mean, God, go to Egypt. Like where? And for how long? When God gives a direction, he rarely gives an address. Maybe he gives the destination, but not all the details. And that's very true. He allows circumstances to happen in our lives, and we don't have a clear, all the step-by-step plays that we need, but we just have a sense of this is the direction we're going to go. And so here's my question to you for today. Where is your Egypt? What are the things that have happened in your life that all of a sudden have shaken your family circumstance, and now you immediately have to adjust? So where's your Egypt? The Holy Family, when they left, there was a lot of unanswered questions. And I think sometimes in life, this happens to us as families. Right. Something happens, something changes, we have to adjust, and we don't have all the answers. We just kind of a general direction of what we need to do next.
It actually just makes me think of all the people on the island in Hawaii, Lahaina, who had to flee because the fires were coming. What do? They have to go. And where do you go from here? Sometimes you don't know. Like a friend of mine, I remember she just recounted to me recently about a time in her life when she felt completely abandoned, like she was going to lose everything, her husband, her children, her house. She had no finances, and she was crying under her bed because she didn't want her children to hear her. And it's like, where do you go from here? She knew all she had was God, and that in itself was consoling to her.
So I think many of you who are watching, we've experienced these changes in our life, and all of a sudden what we had is gone, and now we have to adjust, and it's difficult. Something that we've held dear is now taken from us, and the Holy Family can understand this. They had a way of life, and all of a sudden it's just taken. Get out of here. Go to Egypt. This is for your good. And then when you're in that circumstance, so it's very difficult to understand how this can be for our good. I know many people through the last 3 years through COVID have experienced some sort of shakeup in their life that was beyond their control. People lost their jobs, their income, their savings. And it was difficult. I know for us it has been difficult because our whole way of life was turned upside down. Up to COVID, I was a full-time Catholic speaker for over 20 years, and all of a sudden everything comes to a grinding halt. So that's how I provide as a husband and father for the needs of our family. So all the income is gone. We had sold our house and moved into this one thinking that we're going to build somewhere else. And now we have no income, and we have we can't get financing. And I'm thinking, okay, what did I just do to my family? We're now stuck in a rental, which has been a blessing, but it was just not ideal. And I'm like, I don't know the way out of this.
And it kept feeling like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. But you know what? I never worried.
See, I did.
I feel like God always makes a way. He just does.
Yeah, but it was...
And even if we had to stay here, so be it.
The reason I'm sharing is like other people have more difficulties than us, but like it was hard for me. Maybe there's something in your life. That's my Egypt, and I'm still kind of navigating through it. What's yours? And to remember that the Holy Family went through difficulties where they had to abandon all the comforts of life, and all they had was God. All that the Holy Family had was Jesus with them.
I think of another lady that I met at our parish recently who fled. She was from Iran, and she was in a refugee camp, I think for 5 or 7 years. And, you know, could you imagine just like fleeing your country and not knowing how long am I going to be here? When am I going to move to a place of greater freedom? That would be really hard.
Yeah, so when the Holy Family was told to go to Egypt, God was kind of vague, to tell you the truth. The angel only said, go to Egypt. There was no exact address. There wasn't for how long. There was like, oh, there will be a job there for you. This is who's going to provide for your needs. This is how you're going to get the food. There was none of that. Nor was there any description of like the journey, what's going to happen on the way.
What was the road like? St. Alphonsus says, St. Bonaventure describes it, was rough, unknown, through woods, and little frequented. The season was winter, and therefore they had to travel in snow, rain, wind, and storms, and through bad and difficult roads. Mary was then 15 years of age, a delicate virgin, unaccustomed to such journeys.
Now, if I'm the Holy Family, or if I'm Mary, I'd be thinking, God, don't I deserve better than this? I mean, I just said yes to the angel. I have a son. You promised he's going to be king. And is this how you treat a king? This is one thing that stands out to me. Mary never complains about her circumstances. She continues with this attitude, let it be done to me according to thy word. I'm the handmaid of the Lord. Are we complaining about our Egypt?
St. Bonaventure asks, where did they obtain food? Where did they rest at night? How were they lodged? What other food could they have than a piece of hard bread which Joseph brought with him or begged in charity? Where could they have slept, particularly in the 200 miles of desert through which they traveled, where, as authors relate, there were neither houses nor inns, except on the sand or under some tree in the wood, in the open air, exposed to robbers or those wild beasts with which Egypt abounded? Ah, if anyone had met these 3 greatest personages of the world, what would he have believed them to be but 3 poor, roving beggars? Could you imagine meeting the Holy Family on the way? Oh, that'd be so incredible. That would be so incredible.
Well, here's a thought. Maybe we can. As we journey through the desert to Egypt, as we adjust, I think that's the consolation here. That this is not a road that God has not traveled ahead of us on. That as we travel and navigate to our Egypt, who we have on the journey is the Holy Family, Our Lady of Sorrows, Saint Joseph, and Jesus. You know, I've heard some people say, well, I'm faithful to Jesus, but my life has just gotten harder. And they complain about this. Is it possible that in our faithfulness, life gets harder? Yes. I mean, I can't find in scriptures anywhere where Jesus promised an easy life. He said, he didn't say, I've come that you would have an easy life. He said, I've come that you would have life and have it abundantly, but he didn't promise a life of ease. He said, if anyone wants to come after me, he must pick up his cross, deny himself, and follow me. I don't know why we've got it into our minds that we somehow, because we are faithful, then therefore God should give us a life of ease. I think God will give us times of great consolation, and there'll be great times of sorrow, like in everyone else's life. But I think that when we go through those difficult times and we understand that, we realize we are not alone, and this journey has a purpose. We don't wander aimlessly in this darkness. No, there was a purpose to Egypt. There was a purpose to the adjustments. There's a purpose to what's going on in your life. And if we feel like, oh, I've been faithful, but God has abandoned me. No, perhaps he's saying, would you come with me to Egypt?
St. Antonius, St. Thomas, and others assert they were foreigners, unknown, without revenues, without money, without kindred. Hardly were they able to support themselves by their humble labors. As they were destitute, says St. Basil, it is manifest what effort they must have made to obtain there the necessaries of life.
And so perhaps, like the Holy Family, we are under the weight of providing for our families and we don't know how, or the weight of bills, the weight of unexpected financial hardship, the weight of unexpected unemployment. These things are real in our lives. And can Jesus lessen the burden? Yes. Yes, he can. It doesn't mean, I'm not contradicting myself. I mean, sometimes life is difficult, but we are going through something. God doesn't want to squash us and make our life miserable either. But he wants us to discover him on this journey.
The Blessed Veronica de Benasco, an Augustinian nun, was carried in spirit to accompany Mary and the infant Jesus in this journey to Egypt. And at the end of it, the Divine Mother said to her, "Child, hast thou seen through what difficulties we have reached this place? Now learn that no one receives graces without suffering. He who wishes to feel least the sufferings of this life must take Jesus and Mary with him. For him who lovingly bears in his heart this Son and this Mother, all sufferings become light and even sweet and dear."
So where is your Egypt? Are you on the way to Egypt and you're not quite there yet because you don't have all the answers? And the burden is heavy. Well, the encouragement today is take Jesus and Our Lady of Sorrows, and by her intercession, she can turn this difficulty and we can even find some sweetness in it. So friends, please pray with us. The Chaplet of Our Lady of Sorrows linked at the end of this video, also in the description. Our Lady of Sorrows,
Pray for us.